It was about 9:30. I was gonna eat breakfast, but then my sister called me. She was crying. Then I already had something. I already knew something in my mind about my mom.
And I thought this weekend for him with his daughter was going to be a wonderful weekend for Christmas. And we can work this out.
At around 10:15 this morning, officers responded to a suspicious circumstance case at a parking lot near Pearl Ridge Center.
And then all of a sudden I started hearing pop, 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 pop. 6 shot.
Teresa Cashel was born on June 29, 1990, the daughter of El Ani and Sten Johnston. She was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, but spent most of her adulthood in IA Beach. Teresa's parents divorced while she was still a child. Her mother, Lua, then married Roy Nihoa, who became Teresa's stepfather. With her parents moving on with their new marriages, Teresa's family grew as she became the sister to several half-siblings. Despite the common struggles of blended families, Teresa grew close to her siblings as well as with her many aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, and nephews. Soon, she began a family of her own, first with her son Tangante, then with her daughter Ching. Though her relationships with their fathers didn't last, she eventually found love again when she met Jason Kachel, who was 11 years her senior. Jason was born on September 17, 1979, in Honolulu. Although he spent much of his life in Oahu, Jason was employed as a truck driver. By most accounts, he was a loving and supportive father to his children from a previous marriage, a son named Shen and a daughter named Ja. He and Teresa eventually tied the knot, combining their family together. To top it off, they also had a daughter named Giselle. Apart from being a dedicated mother, Teresa was an ambitious and driven woman with an entrepreneurial spirit. A licensed esthetician, she was also the owner and founder of an eyelash retail outlet known as Lux Lashes, and even directed their summer 2017 video. Teresa also owned a beauty shop called House of Glam Hawaii, where she frequently hosted seminars on makeup essentials. While operating a small beauty business, she even provided free makeup services to financially disadvantaged women from time to time. As Bunny Bontiti on Instagram, Teresa initially captivated audiences with her creative beauty and self-care related content. Her vibrant personality and stylish videos highlighted her talents as an esthetician, hair and makeup artist, and clothing specialist in the online community. In addition to her beauty-related content, Teresa also regularly shared aspects of her Christian faith. Being a devoted Christian who regularly attended the Calvary Chapel in Ko, she was a woman of strong religious convictions, often posting about her personal beliefs and individual approach to spirituality. Yeah, I want to know who I date, who I go with. Jesus Christ. Combined with her engaging posts about family life and child upbringing, Teresa's spiritual posts helped her forge a unique online persona that resulted in a loyal and devoted following. Despite the demands of running multiple businesses, Teresa found time to be a hands-on mother to her children. She was close to her immediate family as well as her many aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, and nephews who fondly called her. She also offered support to her father, Stephen, who was struggling with his personal life. She's right there, you know, coaching me through, "Dad, everything will be okay." We'd have long discussions and talks. She's my best friend. Her staff at her businesses also looked up to her for being a compassionate businesswoman who always helped them out. Unfortunately, her stellar reputation wasn't enough to save her from a tragic incident. Teresa and Jason lived in a modest house in Oahu, where they raised their children. The two were fairly happy for the first few years of their marriage, teaching their children about faith while ensuring that they made time to bond as a family. However, about 10 years into their home life, Jason's behavior started changing. At first, he began becoming verbally hurtful toward his wife. This soon escalated into physical violence. Uncertain about why her husband suddenly changed, Teresa confided in her mother about their marital problems. By this point, Jason had become extremely jealous and controlling, limiting where she could go and what she could do. Jason even monitored Teresa's movements with GPS apps that he had installed on her phone and placed tracking devices in her car. Teresa tried to be understanding toward her husband to keep their family together. However, after 11 years, their marriage had deteriorated to the point where Teresa had had enough. She told her mother that she wanted to leave Jason, but he refused to accept her decision. Even when she and the children moved out of their Wahoo home in 2022, Jason persisted in making contact with her and persuading her to return. She wanted to leave him, but he wasn't accepting it. He tried to control her with everything, you know. Against Jason's wishes, Teresa filed for divorce in 2023. Amidst the divorce proceedings, Jason became increasingly desperate and unstable. Over the next several months, on December 6th, 2023, he convinced Teresa to go along with him on a drive to Waukee to smooth things over. However, during this meeting, he suddenly held a knife to his neck and threatened to end his life in front of Teresa and their children if she didn't reconcile with him. Alone in a secluded location with the hysterical man, Teresa tried to reason with him. She managed to calm him down enough to get him to drive her home without incident, but the experience severely traumatized her. The following morning, Jason showed up at Teresa's house to apologize for his behavior the day before. Although he seemed to have calmed down from the previous incident, he continued to threaten Teresa about taking his life again. Teresa managed to talk him out of it, but as she left to pick up her cousin at the airport, Jason berated her for not caring about him. This saddened Teresa and made her take pity on her anguished husband, so she agreed to meet him at his home later that day. At Jason's house, Teresa prayed with her estranged husband and did her best to console him. She explained that she needed space and that he should avoid all thoughts about harming himself for the sake of their children and his own well-being. Teresa then left Jason, thinking that she had talked him out of his dangerous thoughts. But that night, he sent her several messages with photos of nooses hanging from trees, trying to get her to come and see him again. At this point, Teresa had enough of Jason's threats, so she ignored the messages. Jason then showed up at her home and attempted to enter through the garage. When Teresa refused to come out and talk to him, he again threatened to take his life. Teresa was then forced to call 911, but Jason had already left by the time police arrived. After taking Teresa's statement and conducting a routine wellness check, they too left without pursuing the matter further. Even after this incident, Jason persisted in his attempts to get Teresa back. On the morning of December 8th, Teresa opened her garage and was shocked to find Jason hiding under her car. She ran into the house in a panic and again called 911. After Teresa gave her statement to the police, she filed a temporary restraining order, TRO, against Jason. She detailed how he had been stalking her and threatening to take his life to manipulate her. She also mentioned that he had several firearms in his Wahoo home. With this, police officers served Jason the TRO on December 19th, 2023. It became effective the following day. As with all domestic restraining orders, Jason was required to surrender all the firearms in his possession to the authorities. Police seized 5 guns from his residence, all of which were registered. On December 20th, the day the TRO came into effect, Teresa and Jason appeared in court to define the terms of the order. The TRO was initially set to last for 30 days, but Teresa's lawyers asked that it be extended to a full year. Although Jason first objected to the length of the order, he ultimately agreed to the terms. During this 1-year period, Jason was prohibited from contacting his estranged wife unless it concerned one of their younger children. In the TRO, Teresa emphasized that she didn't resort to other legal means that would further punish her husband. This was because she hoped that he would get the help he needed to sort out his issues, while the TRO served to protect her and her children. Unfortunately, instead of seeking the help he needed, Jason continued to take matters into his own hands. On the morning of December 22nd, 2023, Teresa planned to meet her mother at the Pearl Ridge Center in Waylo for breakfast and to do some last-minute shopping for the holidays. Luca also intended to hand over Christmas presents meant for her grandchildren on that day. However, Teresa was running late, so she called her mother to tell her that she got caught in traffic but was on her way. That was the last time Luca spoke to her daughter. Moments after she ended the call, Teresa parked her car at the mall parking lot and walked to the Bank of Hawaii. With her was her youngest daughter, Giselle. It was about 10:15 in the morning, and the area outside the mall was beginning to fill with holiday shoppers. Suddenly, the sound of gunfire cracked through the parking lot, and the crowd scattered and ran for cover. And then all of a sudden I started hearing pop, 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 6 shots. And then, a second or two later, I heard pop, 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 and I said, "That's a gun, that's not fireworks." The Honolulu police arrived at the scene minutes later. However, they were too late. In the mall parking lot, they found the lifeless body of Teresa Cachell, who had perished due to multiple gunshot wounds. When officers arrived at the scene, they discovered a 33-year-old female with fatal gunshot wounds. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Police found no other victims at the crime scene. Tragically, the shooting was witnessed by Teresa's daughter, Giselle, who identified her father, Jason Cachell, as the gunman. Immediately after the shooting, the nearby Pali Momi Medical Center went into lockdown to safeguard the patients and staff against possible further attacks. The Bank of Hawaii branch where Teresa was headed also barred its doors and tightened security, while authorities scoured the area for a possible shooter. By 12:46 p.m., authorities determined that there was no immediate danger present in the vicinity, so the lockdowns were lifted. However, the police still hadn't apprehended the shooter. Witnesses told detectives that Jason had fled the scene in a gray Mazda immediately after shooting Teresa. With this, the police department launched an island-wide manhunt, beginning in the commercial and residential areas circling the mall. However, it didn't take long for them to close the chapter of this tragic story. At about 1:40 p.m., officers found the lifeless body of Jason Catella behind a house in Oahu, about 5 miles from the mall, where the initial shooting took place. He had succumbed to a single self-inflicted gunshot wound. The suspect, a 44-year-old male identified as Jason Catella, fled the scene and was later found dead in an area behind an Oahu residence. On the ground beside Jason was the gun that he had used to end his life. In the aftermath of the incident, investigators worked to uncover details about Jason Catella and the factors that might have led him to commit the crime. However, despite his history of domestic violence, he did not have a criminal record. Attorney Michael Green, who represented Jason in the TRO, temporary restraining order, hearing against him, could not explain what compelled his client to commit such a horrific crime. Green claimed to have seen loving messages Teresa and their daughter sent to Jason as recently as early December 2023. This led him to believe that the couple's struggling relationship could have been saved if Jason got the help he needed. Green had actually arranged a mental and psychological evaluation for his client in accordance with the terms of the TRO. He insisted that he never suspected Jason of posing any threat to Teresa or his children, saying that the TRO only mentioned Jason's intention to harm himself. There was no dramatic legal issue before the court. The message I got was that she loved him, but she was frightened for him, Green stated. Weeks after the incident, the Honolulu Police Department continued to investigate how Jason was able to acquire a gun despite having surrendered his firearms after receiving the TRO. Instead, they uncovered that, based on the data from GPS apps on Teresa's car, phone, and other devices, Jason frequently monitored her whereabouts prior to the incident. This proved that the man's unhealthy fixation on his estranged wife was worse than she had known. Perhaps no one was more affected by the tragedy than Teresa's daughter Giselle. To see her mother's fate at the hands of her father was undoubtedly traumatic and life-changing. Teresa's mother, Lucy, was understandably anguished that her granddaughter witnessed such a horrifying event. Still, she marveled at the faith the young girl displayed in the face of the incident, saying that she immediately started praying. Teresa's family has since taken steps to ensure that her daughter gets the support and psychological help she needs to overcome the trauma. Amidst their grief, the victim's family also felt anger, both at Jason, who had taken Teresa's life so callously, and the authorities, who they felt could have done more to prevent her death. In an interview with Hawaii News Now, Lucy spoke of Teresa informing the police about the issues she had been having with Jason. Although it wasn't detailed in the TRO, Lucy claimed that Jason had threatened Teresa's life at gunpoint on more than one occasion. She criticized authorities for never having arrested Jason despite being aware of his threats and possession of multiple firearms. Lucy also questioned the effectiveness of TROs, considering how they failed to prevent Jason from taking her daughter's life. Lucy, along with Teresa's sister, Ginger Lott, has since campaigned for changes to Hawaii's domestic violence laws to better protect victims. In particular, they called for more favorable TRO terms for the victims and more severe penalties for the abusers. Under current state laws, TRO violators are required to spend 48 hours in jail and pay a fine. But Lucy and Ginger proposed increasing the jail time to longer than 96 hours to allow enough time for victims to find safe refuge. They also recommended that violators be required to undergo mental health counseling for a year or more. A few lawmakers have signified their support for the proposed changes. Honolulu City Council member Andrea Tupela referred to the harsher penalties as a game changer. Tupela also said that mental health counseling should be mandatory for violators, which would help ensure an improvement in their mental state by the time the TRO lapses. Despite these positive developments, Ginger believed that amending the law only addresses one aspect of the problem. She felt that it was just as important to end the culture of silence surrounding domestic abuse by educating victims and the public about the nature of such incidents. But what we can't control completely is what the abuser is going to do, Ginger said. And in this case, the abuser used power and control over her, to the point where he ended up taking her life as an ultimate act of control. Meanwhile, Monique Iara, the head of the Domestic Violence Action Center that helped Teresa file the TRO, urged other victims to reach out for support. Citing other cases that had also ended in tragedy, she encouraged victims to use whatever resources they had to get help as soon as possible. As news spread of the influencer's demise, a few women spoke out about how Teresa inspired them to overcome their relationship challenges. One of them was Kin Gabrus, who met Teresa at the TRO hearing while waiting to testify at her own domestic violence case. Kin recalled how Teresa spoke to the other women in the waiting room, encouraging them to be strong for their children's sake. For Kin, Teresa's compassionate words, as she dealt with her own problems, were a testament to her strength and character. On December 26, 2023, Teresa's friends and family members gathered at Magic Island in Honolulu for a candlelit vigil to honor her memory. They were joined by several supporters and followers of her Bunny Bunty social media persona, along with advocates against domestic violence. The event displayed the community's support for the beloved woman. On March 1, 2024, the 10th annual Young Women Prom event also paid a special tribute to Teresa, who had helped the event raise awareness for domestic violence and raise funds for women's empowerment since 2017. Teresa's family also held a domestic violence awareness rally at Nanakuli Beach Park on September 28, 2024. They have also set up an online petition to increase the penalties for TRO violators in hopes of providing safety for those victimized by their violent partners. Not only did her estranged husband end the life of an admirable woman whose hard work aimed to help others, but he also took away a loving mother from her children. Still, Teresa lives on in the memories of everyone she touched, from her children and family to total strangers whom she helped with her words of encouragement and efforts to make a difference. For those who love Teresa, her strength, courage, and conviction serve as a beacon in their quest to attain justice for victims of domestic violence in Hawaii and around the world. My mom, she's a beautiful, independent young woman, a woman of God. She never feared nobody but God. I miss her, and I love her. Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.